Beach Boys! Episode whatever now at this point. We got Connor and Corey here. How you doing, Connor?
I'm tired, but I'm good.
Tired?
Yeah.
It's the way we start every episode.
I think so.
Tired.
Yeah.
But so our last podcast, Craig, right? That one was wow, a lot of knowledge dropped in that one.
Yeah.
I had to go back a couple times, re-listen, just to comprehend some of the stuff. Especially when we were talking about cellular automa. Ooh, man, that stuff was a little bit above my head, but it's definitely an interesting topic that no one really looks into, especially in relation to Bitcoin and the network. You know, just another small world network cult, you know.
Well, I think what I found the most interesting, I don't know, all of it's just fascinating. I just, what really bothers me is that it's still, I mentioned Clemens Lake gave a presentation in March about Turing completeness, and there's been nothing. His video on YouTube has 1,800 views, which is insane. There needs to be way more people looking at that. I mean, I'm not like, I don't know enough about like script and fourth like languages to understand a lot of it, but I've been trying to get into it, and so I think like just hearing Craig talk more about kind of the the cellular automata and then other Turing complete scripts that we're running in Bitcoin, that to me there needs to be a lot more discussion around that. But so Clemens is giving a presentation on the 22nd, I think, in San Francisco. We should ask Gabriel if he's going to go to that, but it's going to be on YouTube. So he's giving a presentation on smart contracts and So I'm looking forward to seeing where that is, because I mean he came out and if anyone hasn't watched, you should go back and watch the Ryan Charles thing we did, because he talked about Clemens' story a little bit too. Hoping to talk to him at some point, because he's an interesting guy, very smart guy. So
I know he's pretty busy though right now too.
He's working on a few things from what I've heard. So yeah.
Yeah.
But so yeah, Craig's interview talked about pre-consensus. He talked about a lot of the stuff that's been kind of going on. So definitely fortunate to have that conversation with him again.
Talked about securities too. That was interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a thing that nobody really talks about.
Yep.
Is why things are securities and whether or not they're regulated under certain jurisdictions. I think it's about time that we start focusing on that, because we've already started seeing some crackdowns.
Yeah.
So we'll see where it all takes us.
Definitely. So here we got Gabriel Cardona. He joined us for today. We just wrapped that up. It was an awesome conversation. He's a really interesting guy. Really nice to talk to you. Like ideologically, I think we're pretty aligned there, and definitely. So he's the developer of Bitbox from a while back, which is like a toolkit to interact with in quite a few different languages, but really nice endpoints to communicate with and build apps on top of Bitcoin Cash. And then he now works with Bitcoin.com, so Bitcoin.com picked him up, and now they're launching their developer platform, and so you can go to developers.bitcoin.com. I believe there might not be an S. It's developer or developers.bitcoin.com, and you can interact with the REST APIs and Wormhole. So we also talked with him about tokens and what he's been working on for tokens. So really great conversation. So we're looking forward to letting you watch. Anything else you want, Corey?
No. Hope you guys enjoy the interview.
Cool. We'll catch you later. All right. We're live. Gabriel, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I'm very grateful for the time. Appreciate it.
We appreciate you coming on for sure. We listened to, I hope a lot of people, I wanted to give a plug to Vin's interview he did with you, because I learned a lot about you. I don't really know anything about you until I really watched that interview, and you have a really, really interesting story. And so you don't have to get too into your entire story, I guess, how you got like into Bitcoin, but if you could just maybe talk about like what led you to Bitcoin generally? Because I mean, the story is really cool. You have a fascinating story.
Yeah, thank you. So also I just want to say thanks to Vin. As I mentioned in that podcast, he is one of the very first people who gave Bitbox any juice on social media, and I credit him a lot with helping it tip. So props to Vin. But in the context of sort of how I ended up on this journey, so as I mentioned in that previous interview, in my teens and my 20s, I was not into software at all. I was basically into music and art, and I was on an entirely different frequency. So I didn't, I kind of ended up on Bitcoin on sort of a roundabout path. Basically what happened is I was traveling around and living out of a backpack and basically just completely living a freed up lifestyle. And I knew a couple of people in Kauai, which is where I was living at the time, who created websites. Basically, they were like white hat hackers, and they had created a small startup doing white hat penetration testing, and it was like super successful, and they got acquired very, very quickly. And these were just some guys I knew, just some regular guys. So I knew that they had found pretty good success on the web. And I went through a personal phase shift where I found out I was going to be a father, and that caused me to kind of take a hard look at my own skill set and decide what I had that I could potentially leverage into, taking care of a family. And the one thing I had was some very basic web design skills. So I pivoted into doing web design. And when I first heard about Bitcoin on Hacker News, it was probably around 2012. And, I think more than the technology, because had only been coding for maybe a couple of years at that time, I think I resonated more with Satoshi's vision. Because of course I was not yet able to wrap my mind around much of the technology, and that's really why I didn't dive in as strongly as I have in this round 2 with Bitcoin Cash, because my skills have matured so much over the past 8 years. So at the time I didn't have the skills to grok what was going on, but the vision was incredibly pure and true, and I got it right out of the gate. Decentralized peer-to-peer electronic cash for the internet that isn't backed by a third party like the Fed, or disempowers a third party like the Fed, let's say, and it's based on mathematics, strength, and numbers. All of those things resonated with me very strongly. So I got my first 5 coins from Gavin's faucet at that time, and then I stepped away for several years, and it wasn't until right around the time of Bitcoin Cash, maybe 6 months before that, when I was focusing on an Ethereum project, and then that led into me creating Bitbox. But I think that's sort of like the high level of how it went down.
Very cool. We first we were working on an app that we tentatively called Bitbox. So that's what really you really caught our attention very, very early on. So we abandoned it immediately once we saw how awesome of a product you had created. Kudos to you, because really, I mean, for people that don't know, can you talk about what Bitbox is, right? So you created Bitbox, and can you just want to tell people what that is, just very generally?
Yeah, absolutely. So Bitbox is an SDK for doing Bitcoin Cash app development. And the story there is I was working on smart contracts with Ethereum, and I was using what's called the Truffle framework, which is just a really, really high quality suite of tools for doing Ethereum app development, basically. And having worked with other frameworks like that in the past, such as Ruby on Rails or Node.js or Angular or React or Cocoa and Cocoa Touch from iOS, and then whatever the version is for Android, I've just several times in my career, I've realized how powerful it is to get a suite of abstractions and a suite of tools together into one toolkit. And it really accelerates how fast developers can go. So basically, every time there is a new framework which emerges, it has all of this different potential functionality. And what empowers developers is to come along and take all of that functionality and put it into a toolkit, which exposes it as nice little building blocks that anybody can take and start to put together their application. So when I saw that with Ethereum, I had actually kind of had the vision for Bitbox several years ago. So I've had this whole idea for a Bitcoin toolkit for several years, but it was a combination of my skills weren't mature enough to make it happen, and BTC, it just wasn't going to happen in BTC. So it kind of brewed in my mind for several years. It wasn't until using Ethereum and realizing that Truffle Toolkit was so good that it really was light years ahead of anything which we had in our space, that ultimately made me shift to try and create something similar for Bitcoin Cash. So we have Bitbox, and it's multiple different components that cover the entire workflow from creating your app to launching your app to scaling your app. But we have a JavaScript SDK, which has been downloaded now over 39,000 times from 100 different countries. And then we have like a REST API, so you can speak to Bitcoin D over HTTP, and you can do it in any framework, so it doesn't have to be JavaScript if you use any other framework. And then we're building out some other tooling around it. And recently we launched a Wormhole Sdk, which is creating tokens on Bitcoin Cash. But the super high level is just that Bitbox and the Bitbox ecosystem are just a suite of developer tooling to help developers go from idea to application 10 times faster than anybody else.
Awesome. Was there anything in particular that led you from Ethereum to Bitcoin Cash? Any like limitations on Ethereum, or?
I think it's more that I really think Ethereum is amazing. I think Vitalik is amazing. To me, Ethereum was like the second best option. And what we wanted was Bitcoin to do its thing and to take over everything and change the world. And then, like we would be in a different world today had Vitalik built Ethereum or whatever it would have been called on top of BTC at the time. So the best option on the table was BTC fulfilled Satoshi's vision. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Vitalik and the crew created their own thing, and then Ethereum is amazing in many, many ways. But myself, I personally resonate more with Satoshi's vision. I think the idea of a peer-to-peer electronic cash that is backed by math and not some third parties who can just game you is a profound technology that has far-reaching implications that will uplift the human condition. And while I think that Vitalik's vision is important, and I think there will be a worldwide distributed supercomputer, that's a very powerful vision, I resonate more with peer-to-peer electronic cash of the internet nation. So it's not that there were limitations with Ethereum that made me go back to Bitcoin Cash. It's more that I just really genuinely believed that Bitcoin Cash fulfilled Satoshi's vision, so it was more in line with what I wanted to work on. So I was happy to dedicate my energy to that.
Cool. So we should call out to anyone that doesn't know, you are now working very well deserved for Bitcoin.com. So congratulations, because you definitely, I don't know, we might be losing you here for a second. There you go. So definitely congratulations. Like, that's awesome that you're now working with Bitcoin.com. Very well deserved. I mean, what you've put out is it's a full feature toolkit. Very impressive stuff. And anyone, honestly, a lot of novice developers can use that to really build some really high quality applications. And that was very much needed. Like you kind of said, right? That was very much needed in the Bitcoin Cash space.
Yeah, let me say two things there. So first, let me say thank you to Roger and Mate and Jared and Emil and Gabriel and Gerald and the rest of the crew at Bitcoin.com. Those guys and girls are serious A players, and it really is a great honor to work with them. I've been a huge fan of Roger and their work for many, many years. So to even be, to work on their team is genuinely a great honor, and I think we're going to change the world in a big way. I often say that if you're supercharged to Bitcoin, if you're supercharged to change the world with Bitcoin Cash, you want to end up on the Bitcoin.com team because there's something special happening there. But so I just want to put that out there. Thank you to Roger and the team. And then secondly, yeah, so Bitbox really is fully featured. It does everything from crypto to mnemonics. It can do EC pairs and HD nodes. It can do all of the standard transaction types: pay to pub key hash, pay to multi-sig, pay to script hash. You can write to the chain with op return, and then it has all of the new op codes enabled. And it does so much more than that. It can sign addresses, and we have an entire GUI interface. And like I said, we have a cloud API, so you don't have to do any further integration, and your app can already send and get information from the blockchain, gets and posts. So the other thing I want to mention that you mentioned, beginners can use it. So we have what are called scaffolds. So Ruby on Rails has scaffolds as well, and it'll generate like the structure of a basic application for you, including like a test directory and some config files. And so that idea combined with Truffle, which has what are called boxes, so you can spin up like a very basic Truffle React app. we combine those two ideas to create Bitbox scaffolds. So we have scaffolds in React, Angular, Node.js, Next.js, and Vue.js, and then we also have one with WebSockets. So you can scaffold a very basic BIP44 wallet. So Bitbox supports 8 different languages for mnemonics. We have BIP39 mnemonics. We support English and Spanish, French, Italian, Korean, Japanese, and Chinese, simplified and traditional. And so you can spin up this very basic wallet in all 5 of those frameworks I just mentioned: React, Angular, Node, Next, and Vue, and then our WebSockets one, and it'll basically choose a random 256-bit mnemonic for you in one of those 8 languages, and then create the first BIP44 account and the first 10 external change accounts, create them into a GUI, and then create a one-to-one pay-to-pub-key hash transaction. So you have all of that code to like take and run with. So a couple different apps out there, I believe, including Scale.cash, which is being used by the stress test team, have been created with this scaffold. So that's a pretty empowering thing to be able to just create a very basic Bitcoin Cash Node.js wallet in less than a minute. And we want to have that across a bunch of different frameworks.
So we want to talk stress test and tokenization, all that kind of stuff, but I want to show one last thing for you. You're also doing an awesome developer roundup, and I just want to call that out to everyone that's listening. You've done 2 of them now, am I right? 2, 3?
You know what? I think we've only recorded 1 since I left Tokyo, and then I did the interview with Vin. No problem at all. So yeah, we are doing an entire social media push at Bitcoin.com, and we've got some really great people doing that, including Michael and Gabriel and Elizabeth and a whole other team. And so we've been doing the weekly roundups with Roger. Of course, those are very popular. And then we want to do something similar with developers. So I did one in Tokyo, where we interviewed Shun from Genome team. So just want to shine some light on the cool stuff they're doing. They're created Bitcoin Cash Kit, which is the first iOS Swift library for Bitcoin Cash. And then they're doing a 2-day hackathon on the 18th and 19th coming up in Tokyo, which we will be there talking about Bitbox as well. But so yeah, we have done 1 so far. It got broken into 2 pieces. The first part of it is live now, and then we're going to be doing weekly videos as much as we can. We're hoping to next do the interview the Hand Cash team, which I think those guys are super awesome. And then after that, I want to get Josh from ZQuestZ and Ryan, and there's a ton of good developers in this space. But yeah, so we should be putting those out weekly. That's our goal, doing a weekly developer roundup where we can do a high level of some of the news and then dig in on one of the tech topics with one of the developers in theory and see how it works.
Sweet. Very awesome. All right, so Corey, I don't know which one you want to start with, but we want to talk to you about the stress test. So you've been kind of involved in some capacity. I actually don't know how much you've been involved in it, but I guess we want to ask you a few different questions around it, right? So number one, there's a lot of people opposed to doing a stress test on the mainnet. So the first question would be, what is your response to those critics, if you will? And then number two, like what has your involvement been, and like, are you looking forward to it? Have you now flipped? Now, are you a critic? Like, where are you at with it? Yeah.
Yes. So I would say to the critics, I have heard 2 criticisms that to me, resonate as true and that are worthy of being addressed. The first one is I have heard that other teams have done similar stress tests on the testnet, and my reply to that is, number one, that's probably true, and it would be cool if we could see the data for that. I haven't actually seen any data for that, so for what it's worth, at this point, it's been kind of anecdotal, and I've just heard things like, we've already done this, and we did it on the testnet. Well, for what it's worth, we've not seen the data. That's, for what it's worth. I think I have a couple feelings on that. Like, first off, developing on the testnet is a really horrible experience. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. I don't actually have any insight into it. It's one of the things I want to learn more about. I don't know if it's that we don't have I don't have any insight to what's happening there, but what I do know from being a software engineer and writing apps and trying to test on the testnet is there are a couple really weird user experiences from a developer's perspective. The first one is, and I welcome anybody out there to reach out to me on Twitter and shine light onto what I'm experiencing here, because I know I'm experiencing it, so why am I experiencing it? Number one, your transactions will not always, and most of the time they won't. So like 3 out of 4 times on the testnet, they will not make it into the next block if you pay 1 Satoshi per byte. So I have my script set up with an environment variable, and if I'm deploying the code to environment is equal to testnet, it'll up the fees times a factor of 15. So I'm paying 15 Satoshis per byte just because I want to get into the block, right? Like I'm trying to do this test. I don't want to spend 3 hours checking back every 10 minutes to see if it's in a block. So to me, that's just odd that you would have to pay 10 times, 15 times more transactions. I'm not sure what that is. And then another thing, there's really weird, again, I don't have any insight into what's happening here. So for example, when I was flying back from Hong Kong, I was trying to figure out how to burn test BCH to get Wormhole coin. And I for sure sent it, I did everything correct. And the testnet explorer, which I was using Insight's testnet explorer, because that's another poor experience that devs have, is there's not a lot of great tooling around the testnet. In fact, I would say the best testnet tooling out there is trust.bitcoin.com, which is like a very high-powered UI for the testnet, which we just threw up. But so I was seeing, like in our testnet explorer, it would show that my transaction was in a block that had been mined 2 or 3 blocks ago. But then whenever you would look at the actual transaction ID and query for it, it would come back as 0 confirmations. So just really weird things that are odd, and I don't have any insight into how to fix them. So that weighs on in one part of my mind when somebody says, well, we've already done this test on the testnet. I know just from having sent tens of thousands of transactions across the testnet, literally lots and lots and lots of them, that it is a very wonky experience, and it's most certainly not a one-to-one mapping of what happens on the mainnet. So for what it's worth, like if you live in the world of, I would like my code to run the same across all environments everywhere, that's not the case. So that weighs on my mind when I hear somebody say that. And then the second part of that is, this is a bit more hand wavy, but it is what I'm saying is true in essence. Businesses who want to build on Bitcoin Cash don't really care if you've done that on the testnet. That doesn't mean a thing to them. That means nothing at all. Being able to point seems like now. Let me know if it's choppy. You guys with me?
Yep. No, you're back. You're back.
Yep. Yeah, you're back now.
Yeah. So what I was saying is, it doesn't matter to businesses if you say to them, we've done this on the testnet. That's something that matters to us as a community and as engineers and as people trying to scale this system out. But to businesses, they really want to know, have you done it on the mainnet? That's what really matters. If my business actually gets crazy slammed, is it going to happen? Is everything going to be okay? So the first part of the argument, like I said, there's 2 parts to me that are valid criticisms, which I think should be addressed. The first being, we've done that on the testnet, to which I reply, number one, we've not seen any data, so let's make the data available so we can get a sense of what that means when you say you've done it on the testnet. That'd be great. And number 2, the testnet is not a one-to-one mapping to the mainnet. So I would be interested to know what that means when you say you've done that on the testnet. Did you too have to pay 15 times more Satoshis per byte? Did you too have weird things where it was said it was mined, but 3 blocks later it wasn't still mined, or etc.? So, and then the other part of that is, but we really want to prove this to potential users of our system, and saying we did it on a testnet feels like an insular answer that is sufficient for people in our tribe, but not on the external. And the other complaint, which I think is valid, is that you're just spamming the UTXO set. Level DB doesn't scale well. So, ultimately you're just blowing up the UTXO set for full nodes. So, we do a fan out transaction where we'll do like 1 to many, and then a many to many, and a many to many, and a many to many, and then we consolidate all the UTXO back into a single output. And then we even offer if you go to scale.cash, you can see at the bottom there's a little check mark where you can click it and send your leftover dust to BCH. So, my answer to that particular concern that we're spamming the UTXO set is that we're not. We're aware of that in advance, and we're doing, we're consolidating everything back into one output. And, we're paying the fees. So in a sense, there's like this classic argument that, well, what is spam? Like, they're paying the fees, is it spam? And my personal take on it, and I'm not speaking for the Scale.Cash team, of course, but the way I see it is, think about the transaction highway. We've got this beautiful system, and it's got all this capacity, and it's just not being used right now. And so in a sense, it's kind of like, in my mind, anybody who wants to pay to ride the ticket can ride. Or, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, so that's kind of how I'm at with it. In my mind, I don't think what we're doing is ultimately bad. I think we're going to be proving something which will help our brand to outside community. I think we're consolidating the UTXO, and I think we're paying the fee.
I think also, to be clear, we're proponents of this. I think it's awesome. I think even getting to see the transaction difference when you look at like a long-term graph of BCH and BTC, I mean, it's really cool to see that, right? But also, I think it's worthwhile to see how do miners and businesses react to if that were to happen tomorrow, right? Like if there were some application or business that came into Bitcoin Cash tomorrow, and they were going to use a lot of transaction space, I think it's worthwhile to know what would happen if they turned it on tomorrow and that were to happen, right? So,
yeah, I mean, I say all roads lead to Bitcoin Cash, and I think what I mean by that is Bitcoin Cash fulfills Satoshi's vision. So I myself do not get pulled into the wormhole, if you will, or the rabbit hole of arguing with people online about BTC and BCH. I believe during the first week of the fork, I was pretty fired up like everybody else, and you'll probably find some tweets out there from me screaming, Bitcoin Cash is Bitcoin, but since then I really have chilled it out, and I just don't go, pardon me, I just don't go there. The sort of cliche line I've said many times, but I really do mean it, and I hope you get what I'm saying here, is that, like, other than the I'm a Mac, I'm a PC ad, you really wouldn't see Steve Jobs arguing with anybody about Windows at all. He's just going to tell you how amazing he's going to show you how amazing the iPhone is and how it's going to change your life, or how amazing Macintosh is and how it's going to change your life. And to me, we won in the divorce, as counterintuitive as it may seem, because they got the ticker symbol and they got the brand and they got the market cap. But we got Satoshi's vision. We got the technology. So, we really did win. We don't have to fight that battle anymore. We can move on with it, basically. So I just wanted to kind of state that I personally don't get pulled into the BCH versus BTC battle. And yeah, just want to put that out there because I think it would be better to face forward as a tribe and build bridges than it is to face backward and continue fighting a battle that we already won.
Well said. Well
I really
said.
like that Steve Jobs comparison. Start using that if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Should we move on to tokenization? Well, I guess can you just real quick? I mean, so what are you expecting to see on September 1st? So that's the date of the stress test. What are you looking forward to seeing?
Yeah, I suspect that we will come close to getting what we want to do, which is 5 million on-chain transactions. On the 1st of August, when we were in Hong Kong, the team sent out, the team was obviously distributed, but I remember because I was at the party in Hong Kong. They sent out, I believe, close to 700,000 on-chain transactions. And so I think there's still work to do, and we may not hit exactly 5 million. I'm not sure that we'll hit that number. I don't believe we've been able to go above an 8 megabyte block right now. I don't know if any miners will even do above an 8 megabyte block. So, I'm not sure if practically we will actually hit the number, but from my perspective, it's already been a success. It is one of the coolest apps built with Bitbox, in my opinion. I feel like, this is just from my perspective on the world. It feels good to see people take Bitbox and then create a spike like that on the transaction chart. To me, that just feels very nice. So I want to give a lot of love and respect to the BCH team, or I'm sorry, to the stress test BCH team. And, like I said, I think we'll come close. I mean, we'll either get very close or we'll break it. We've already done, 1/6 or 1/7 of the capacity, and I know that these guys are working every single day on it. So I suspect that we'll come very close to it.
We'll help you out as much as we can. So
yeah, please do. It might be that we like smash it big time. You know, it might be because there's a lot of people who are very enthusiastic about it, and I think they're doing a lot of outreach every single day. You know, I see Matt in Melbourne and Stack My BCH and the rest of the crew doing a lot of outreach. So it might be that 5 million transactions in one day ends up seeming small. But again, like I said, regardless of what we hit, to me, it's already been a victory. I feel like August 1st was a victory. If you look at the fork.lol transactions chart, you know, it's like epic history-making status. So our proven that we are the business-friendly blockchain. As I was saying before I got sidetracked, you know, all roads lead to Bitcoin Cash. And what I mean is Satoshi's vision was right on. And it's why we're seeing all this tokenization stuff now that we've had the hard fork and we've re-enabled all the opcodes and we're getting back on track to where we are. And it kind of speaks to why Ethereum happened the way it did. But I think that we should not be surprised when big companies start launching on Bitcoin Cash. We should be surprised if some big companies don't start doing it soon, because it is uniquely suited to be the business-friendly blockchain. We have scale and capacity, and our fees don't spike. And then we've got that SHA-256, so we share the same hashing proof of work with Bitcoin BTC. So in a sense, you know, we've got all that hashing power that can jump onto us at any moment. And we've got some serious players. You guys have seen the paperwork for Bitmain's IPO. You know, that's just one company in our space that is quite serious. So just to kind of like speak to what you were saying about it's good that it shows us a business wants to jump on our blockchain. Yeah, I say all roads lead to Bitcoin Cash. If you zoom out far enough and you're a business who's savvy enough, you realize that Bitcoin Cash is the play. So we should be looking for these transactions to spike. And in that sense, I'm personally grateful to the stress test BCH team, because we've shown that we can spike the network like crazy with transactions, and we've got scale and we don't spike our fees. And that's super, super important.
So ultimately, like pre-stress test, do you think we're ready for removing the limit, or do you think we need to kind of increase at a safer route?
Yeah, you know, I have seen multiple people telling me that their systems were under load from the stress tests. So so I guess in that sense, everything good?
Well, I lost you again, but you're good. You're back.
We lost you.
I'm sorry. Let me know what, if I can repeat. Yeah, you know how it is. So anyway, yeah, I kind of am a little bit less traditional in, like, how do you phrase this properly so that you don't trigger people? I think we should move forward aggressively on being willing to change the network and do what it takes in order to be incredibly successful. And when I say successful, I envision Bitcoin Cash fulfilling Satoshi's vision and being as meaningful as the web and beyond. I think I call it the divorce, because I just think that kind of sums up how pleasant this fork was. You know, like the divorce ended up being the best thing that could have happened, because it shook out the two tribes. And finally, it's like for a brief moment, we've got this window of opportunity on Bitcoin Cash where we've got the tribe, which is all proactive about being cash for the entire planet. And so we should leverage that opportunity to move very fast. And as I understand it, you know, Satoshi has the Coinbase reward and it tapers out over the schedule. And he said somewhere, like, I'm very confident in 20 years there will either be billions of Bitcoin transactions or there will be no Bitcoin transactions. And as I took what he was saying there is, like, if we don't hit a certain scale, it won't work. You know, there's a network effect, and there's as the Coinbase tapers off, we need fees, and there's a sweet spot. And if we don't hit it, hey man, great experiment, but it didn't work. So I'm confident that there's either going to be billions of transactions or there's none. So in a sense, we really have our work ahead of us, because we really already lost 8 or 9 years, or however long it's been. We really should have had a lot more of adoption than we have by now. In a sense, we have had adoption because altcoins have taken off, and so in a sense, if you think about cryptocurrency in general, it really has. But it's unfortunate that it got shattered into 1,000 pieces and that we lost the focus that could have came with having one thing. And it's unfortunate that our one thing, BTC, the thing which still wears the crown of our community, moves so slowly and isn't innovating at the pace which we would all like it to. So, just from where I sit as a developer, I'm not suggesting we should move so quickly as to break things and we should be stupid and that we should sacrifice all the things that we love about Bitcoin and Cash, because that's not what I mean. What I do think is that we should be willing to have an open mind about changing things and being aggressive about it in the context of making sure that we're successful with this project. So yeah, I would say, do we need to upgrade the systems? I think we'll find out on the first, and then whatever we need to fix, we should fix it. And I think that is progress.
Well said. I think we're pretty ideologically aligned there for sure. So, yeah. Cool. Well, we're looking forward to that. And again, I mean, really, it's really cool hearing you talk. And like, honestly, congratulations that everything you've done. It's just cool to see like people using it and stuff that's going to happen with it. So like, congratulations, man, for sure. Like, that's awesome what you've been building. So. So I guess let's talk about the most recent thing you just kind of put out, right? So Wormhole, you've been kind of working with Wormhole. So we kind of wanted to, before we talk about Wormhole specifically, I guess we want to talk about, first off, like tokenization in general. Have you kind of explored the other proposals out there? Have you, like, was Wormhole just kind of like, it's the first, I know it's kind of the first fully like, hey, out of the box, you can use this, right? Are there others that you've looked at that you're interested in, or are you kind of just like Wormhole works and you're interested in it, or you don't need to pick favorites or anything like that right now, but I guess I was just curious. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have been saying for like a while that tokens were the next big paradigm shift for Bitcoin Cash. And I feel like you will often hear people say in a very pejorative manner, they'll talk about ICOs, and all ICOs are scams or something like that, or shitcoins or something like that. Or you'll hear people talk pejoratively about ERC 721, so non-fungible tokens like CryptoKitties. You'll hear people, be pejorative about CryptoKitties. I, of course, see it the opposite of that because I like technical standards. So to me, the standard, even if it's just a convention or if it's formal standard, I'm not sure what the actual status of it is, but ERC 20, the standard for tokens and ICOs, and then ERC 721, the standards for non-fungible tokens, which are CryptoKitties and anything in that sort of category. To me, those were really powerful innovations when they happened, and I felt like we lacked something like that on our side of the camp. So I've always been a big fan of them, and I thought they were very cool. And I felt like I always wonder if whenever you hear people talk about ICOs as scams or, CryptoKitties, if it's not a little bit of just upsetness that we don't have that happening on our coin, because as I understand it, really Vitalik wanted to build some type of tokens on top of Bitcoin Cash, and he was on top of Bitcoin, excuse me, and he was basically told no, and then they turned off those opcodes and made opreturn down to 40 bytes, I believe, or something, and so they stopped that. And then now I see, just having made opreturn bigger and turned on these opcodes, and now we can just fork the Omni layer. Omni's been around for a long time. I remember talking about Mastercoin years ago. So now I kind of get a sense now with the historical perspective and working out with Wormcoin, I'm like, oh, I get it. There should have been all the ICOs, all the tokens, all of that should have happened on BTC. Like, that's the way it was going to go down. I don't know if people were threatened. You can ask yourself why they prevented that from happening, but for whatever reason, they shut that down real quick. Ethereum happened. You can argue whether or not ICOs are scams. The stance I personally take is buyer beware. I think the person who is in the marketplace purchasing things with their hard-earned money shouldn't be a moron and should have some awareness of, and it's on them to make the right choice. Now, that's not to say you can't be tricked and scammed. I'm not saying that at all. But I think writing off ICOs as scams with just one big brushstroke is incorrect, because when I was at Trulia, I wasn't on the team that did the IPO. To be fair, I was on the mobile team, but we did an IPO while I was there. And I remember it being very slow. It took around 13 months. I remember being, from the outside, very expensive because they hired a whole team of very talented Silicon Valley lawyers who do this exact thing. I remember our CEO, Pete Flint, going around all to these banks all around the country doing like a CEO roadshow. I don't remember what big bank we worked with, but it was somebody like Bear Stearns or something, some large bank like that. And then we went public on New York Stock Exchange where Pete was there ringing the bell that morning. And it was like a huge deal. You compress all that down into an ICO. And so in my mind, just in the context of the pace of change accelerating, ICOs are a very powerful way for people to raise funds to change the world with their ideas. So I think ICOs are actually amazing. Does that mean all of them are amazing and that some of them are not scams? Of course not. And buyer beware. It's on you to know who you're giving your money to when you're doing it. So I think while I was in Tokyo, it really became a topic we would talk about like every single day. I think we talked about tokens every single day when I was there. That was when Emil and Andrew were having the discussion with Omri and Shay and Jason and Jonald and crew about the group proposal. And then obviously there's Tokeda and there's colored coins and there's counterparty cash and there is obviously Omni. And then is it the BitPrem guys just launched one? I'm losing somebody in there that has one that just launched.
There's also the Simple.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Simple Ledger Protocol by Jonald and James Kramer and those guys, which I think, in my mind, is the front runner for SPV-friendly tokens. So, you know, Wormhole as it sits right now is not SPV-friendly. It's based on pawn-off return, and that is a huge barrier to entry. I'm pragmatic enough to appreciate that. It's not a deal breaker. And I'll get into sort of why I think Wormhole is what I think is going to be the big one that pops first. But so basically, it's just like, in my mind, people want tokens. People want to raise money on ICOs. People want to tokenize things in their life, whether it's like points for shopping rewards, whether it's stocks in their company, you know, for whatever reason. It's not on us to judge whether or not it's a legit reason. People want tokens, and Ethereum is proof of it. So whatever you think of ERC20, whatever you think of CryptoKitties, the proof is that people raise $10 billion a month on Ethereum using these tokens. So there's clearly huge utility there. So I have sort of been in this camp of we need tokens for a while. I've talked to a bunch of businesses that are like, hey, we love Bitcoin Cash. It solves every problem we have about cheap and reliable transactions. We want to launch an ICO on Bitcoin Cash. How do we do that? And I'm like, you can't. And in my mind, I thought as a dude was going to get in, and I knew that it wouldn't happen until May of next year at the earliest, because the way the roadmap worked is we would need op data sig verified to go live in November, and then that allows us to get oracles, and then we would be able to have group in next May's hard fork. And we already know that op data sig verify is now turning into a contentious thing, so it may not even go live in November. So having worked with the HTML5 standards group and seen standards get pushed back years, which slows down the pace of change, because really people just want to use this amazing new stuff. They don't want to get tripped up over the standard bodies, but the standard bodies are trying to do the right thing by history. They're trying to set us all up so we played well together in 5 or 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. When I went to Hong Kong, so I was very fortunate enough to go to Hong Kong to the August 1st BCH 1 year celebration. It was an amazing place. Shout out to Tokyo and Hong Kong. I've been all around the world. I'm telling you, there's something special happening in Tokyo and Hong Kong. I feel like there's a birth of the whole big thing is happening there. There's something in the air. It's really cool. So awesome. When I was at Hong Kong, I saw, I think 4, maybe it was 3. There was a lot going on. It was a blur. But there were multiple presentations by the different people working on Wormhole. And everything was in Chinese, so I was getting it translated in real time to me in this headpiece. And massive shout out to the people who do that in real time. These people are taking in Chinese, high-tech gibberish, translating it to English in real time with, deep technical discussion. Props to those people. So, of course we lost some stuff. They were calling the Lightning Network the Flash Network. Jerry from SI Bits was like, hold on, I think something's getting lost in translation here. Are you saying, I think they need the Lightning Network. So, there was stuff lost in translation, but I got enough out of it to know that the problems that Wormhole is trying to solve, specifically Turing complete high-level scripting languages like Solidity, they use Solidity as the example, smart contracts, ERC20 tokens, which are ICOs and tokens, crowd cells, and then ERC721, which is non-fungible tokens, which is CryptoKitties and every other thing like that. Magic, the gathering cards, but crypto version, something where, that is an individual single instance that has a unique ID across the whole system. Those problems are so important, and Wormhole is solving them. And then that in combination with the fact that Bitmain and VibeBTC and CoinEx are all putting big energy behind it. They all were on stage saying we're supporting it 100% out of the gate. It just seems to me like the right convergence of technology and players to where it's going to pop, and it's going to pop big. So that's the reason that I've been backing Wormhole like I have.
Cool. How's it been going? I guess I know you just released an endpoint, right, to interact with it. So how's that all been going?
So the way it works is Wormhole is a superset of Bitcoin Cash. So it can do everything Bitcoin Cash can do, and it can do some other stuff. So whenever you download Bitcoin ABC, you clone it from GitHub, and you type make install, and build the code. At the end, you will have a Bitcoin D executable and a Bitcoin-CLI executable. And you run Bitcoin D, and it fires up Bitcoin and syncs the blockchain and listens over port 8333 and 8332. And you can send it RPC commands, which are, if you go to rest.bitcoin.com, that is speaking to Bitcoin D. So the way Wormhole works is they have forked Bitcoin ABC, and they have added, so now if you go clone their Git repo and you run, configure, make install, and you build it, at the end, instead of having a Bitcoin D, you now have a Wormhole D. And instead of having a Bitcoin-CLI, you have a Wormhole D-CLI. And so when you fire up Wormhole D, it syncs the entire Bitcoin Cash blockchain, and then there's some Omni stuff on top of it. And then if you run the RPC help command, you'll see all of the RPC commands that we all know and love of Bitcoin Cash, the ones that you'll see on rest.bitcoin.com. And then there are 49 or 50 additional RPC calls that are related to Wormhole. And a lot of the documentation still says Omni. I'm not sure exactly what they have done to fork it to Bitcoin Cash. I don't know the fine details. Just yesterday, I got pulled into a WeChat thread, a group with the creator of Wormhole. His name I'm totally spacing on. I apologize to him and his team because he's a super high-level engineer from Bitmain, and I apologize. I don't remember his name offhand, but just yesterday I got pulled into a thread with 2 Wormhole engineers, the creator and then one of the other guys. So I'm going to be able to get a lot of the questions that I still haven't answered directly from them, I'm hoping. All of the documentation for Wormhole is in Chinese, and all of the presentations I saw were in Chinese. So in order for me to build this SDK, what I had to do is go build the code and then look at every single one of the RPC calls and then just take the methods and the data types and then go create this. So you can think about it like Wormhole D is, think about it like a cake or a layer chart. Wormhole D is layer 1, it's at the bottom. This was created by Bitmain. It's a superset of Bitcoin D. It does everything Bitcoin does, Bitcoin Cash obviously does, and then some extra stuff which is related around creating crowd cells and tokens and transferring tokens, etc. So layer 2 that sits on top of that is I created called Wormhole REST, and that's similar to rest.bitcoin.com. So I basically just created a REST interface for interacting with Wormhole D. This is open source. It's on our GitHub repo at bitcoin.com GitHub repo. And then sitting on top of that is layer 3, and that's our JavaScript SDK. So basically that is just every single endpoint turned into a class with a method and arguments, etc. And so now the race is on, in my opinion, to create layer 4, which are going to be GUIs for people to create tokens. Right now we've got all the primitives, we've got the REST interface, we've then got the JavaScript library, and the race is on to basically build the GUI for it. But when I created Bitbox, I did it very much on my intuition that Bitcoin Cash was going to be where the play was going to be. So one of the things Kurzweil talks about in his Singularity is Near plug, you'll hear me plug it every single time you ever talk to me. It's profound. Go buy it right now. Watch the video. So in the Singularity Near, he talks about like most teams will deliver what they say they're going to deliver if you give them a budget and a timeline to do it. But the problem is most people are behind. The product that they launch is something they thought of 6 months ago. And the market is in a completely different place 6 months from now. So really, you've got to be working on something now, which is going to pop in a few months or however long your timeline is to be, in the sweet spot when it all happens. So when I created Bitbox, my intuition was Bitcoin Cash is the play. Bitcoin Cash is just Bitcoin that we all know and love. So if you were ever into Bitcoin, if Bitcoin ever turns you on and you were like, whoa, Bitcoin, that's Bitcoin Cash. There it is. Boom. It's that easy. So it's the opportunity of a lifetime. I was telling people with Bitcoin Cash, how many times do you get the opportunity of a lifetime the second time in your life? Like if you missed out on Bitcoin, well, guess what? Bitcoin Cash is the play now. So when I saw Wormhole, my spidey sense was tingling very strong that this is the play and that this is a good place to dedicate energy. So, I went through some just like fever dream, knocked out that whole framework in about, 4 or 5 days of straight work without any sleep or anything. It was just, as soon as I got back from Hong Kong, I created it straight, boom. And it's been accepted incredibly well, both internally at Bitcoin.com and then out on social media and on Reddit, etc. It's got downloaded, I think, 1,200 times since I launched it a week ago. So, it's doing good numbers, and it's still very early. I think this is going to, in my opinion, the next huge wave of innovation that's going to happen in our space is going to be around tokens. And I believe in 6 months or less, time is compressing and the speed of change is accelerating. So it might be in 3 months, but in 3 to 6 months, I predict there will be a very large IPO that happens on Wormhole because all of the stuff is there. You can launch it today. You don't need to wait a month. You can today go take the tooling that we built and the tooling that Bitmain built and launch an ICO. I've launched now several on testnet. So all the technology is there. We're just waiting for somebody to step forward and do it. So I think it's been incredibly successful, paradigm shift level, and I think it's going to trigger a phase shift in our entire tribe and industry. I think it's going to be very divisive for what it's worth. I think it's going to be incredibly disruptive and divisive. And I say that because of the way people feel about ICOs and CryptoKitties. Like some people hate that crap. And if you bring it up, they're going to get triggered instantly. Well, that's coming to Bitcoin Cash for better or worse. So we need to sort of embrace that and wrap our minds around what that means for our tribe. But I think it's going to be big. And like I said, I think in 3 to 6 months, things are going to heat up in a big way in our tribe, for sure.
I think people get mad at CryptoKitties and stuff because it bogged down Ethereum too, and I don't think that'll happen with Bitcoin Cash, which is probably the benefit there. Yeah.
Success. Yeah, but I think that's just being a victim of their own success. CryptoKitties isn't really to blame for that. That is to blame, as far as I understand, that's because every single Ethereum node executes every single smart contract. And I didn't quite capture this, so I may get this not exactly right, but I'll get the gist of it. They were talking about in Hong Kong how Wormhole will be able to perform much better than Ethereum because not every single node will have to execute every single op return. And I don't remember if that's because they're able to just decompile the first few bits and see if that's the one they need, or I don't know exactly why that was the case, but a couple of people said that Wormhole should be able to be a lot more performant than Ethereum's version of smart contracts. So again, I think, yeah, you're right. People get, that's one of the reasons, but really that's like, they're just a victim of their own success, right? It was just so big that it clogged down the network.
Yep, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned earlier you suspect that in a couple months, big businesses are going to start coming to Bitcoin Cash. Are there any specific areas you think where it'll take off first?
Yeah,
like maybe reward points or I don't know.
With tokenization specifically?
Yeah, tokenization.
Yeah, I think, again, for better or worse, man, I think ICOs are about to take off on Bitcoin Cash in a big way. So I just think that alone in the same way. So see, I see like money will flow through Bitcoin Cash to Wormhole in the same way money flows through Ethereum to ICOs and CryptoKitties. So it's kind of like this channel that opens the doorway between, fiat and all these different new ways people are doing creative stuff with tokens. So I think the first place, payments is always where Bitcoin Cash is going to win. The cliche being like, yeah, but you can do cheaper payments on Dogecoin or something like that. But there are multiple things which have to come together in order for something to be like a winner in the big way. And Dogecoin lacks the brand. So it's just as simple as nobody would ever take that serious on a worldwide scale. So I think Bitcoin Cash will always be great for payments. So I suspect that as soon as some big online service provider who does games, or maybe like an Internet of Things provider, something like that plugs in, I expect that'll take off. But I just expect that before we see that, we're going to see a lot of different tokens and people launching ICOs, and all these tokens will become valuable. So we're going to see all kinds of innovation around wallets and security. I think that it's going to be driven primarily by the tokenization of everything over the next year, let's say.
Cool. We're close to an hour. We'll wrap it up here. We'll let you go here soon. But I guess I'm curious. So you mentioned you're spending some time in Tokyo, and can maybe just talk about what that's been like living in Tokyo?
I'm in love, man. I got a deep, deep love affair now with Asia, between Tokyo and Hong Kong. It's challenging for me because I have a 9-year-old son, and he considers himself a San Francisco local. Like he tells people, I'm from San Francisco. He's got pride. I love San Francisco. I have a very, very deep love affair with San Francisco as well. I wanted to live here from the time I was growing up. So I'm trying to strike a balance of where I can spend part of my time in Tokyo, because that's where our headquarters is, Bitcoin.com, and then part of my time here. And how do I do that with a 9-year-old son without disrupting his life? Will he be able to relocate to Tokyo? That's asking a lot of anybody to go somewhere where there's a home language and a home everything. So I've got some things I'm trying to iron out, but I will for sure be spending part of my time there going forward. Working with Bitcoin.com and Roger and the whole team is the opportunity of a lifetime. And I'm the kind of person who maximizes the opportunity of a lifetime during the lifetime of the opportunities. So there's no question I'm on the ground as much as possible. So I think both cities are worth noting, Tokyo and Hong Kong. There's something really special in both places. Tokyo is 34 million people. So, I went to 2 of the highest towers there, and you can look out, and it's as far as you can see in every direction. Literally on the very, 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 very horizon, there's skyscrapers. It is the most clean and, polite megatropolis at the human scale that surely exists in the world. If there's a better one out there, I would definitely be interested. I don't know what the crime is there, but I suspect it's incredibly low. They don't have public trash cans due to some weird thing they had happen in the 90s, but they have a very clean culture. You don't see cans of stuff thrown on the street. You don't see plastic wrappers over in the gutter ever anywhere in Tokyo. It's incredibly clean everywhere you go. Everybody there is like super, super nice. To me, it feels like there's something special happening there. Like you can spend Bitcoin Cash as cash there in a way which I have not witnessed anywhere else, including San Francisco. You would think San Francisco would have a super strong crypto scene, but we really don't. We definitely don't have a crypto Bitcoin Cash scene here, like I hope to in the future. We have Ryan from yours. We have me from Bitbox. We have Shah from ABC, Shama. We have Bitmain just opened a 20,000 square foot office. So I believe that's about to change in the Bay Area. But in Tokyo, I don't know if it's because Roger and Bitcoin.com are there. I don't know if that's because maybe that's where Satoshi was from. I don't know if it's because they have a cashful digital culture. I don't know what convergence of things it is, but Bitcoin Cash is huge there. Like it's the real deal in Tokyo. You can pay for your rent in Bitcoin Cash. You can pay for food at a bunch of different restaurants all across the city in Bitcoin Cash. You can go to big electronics stores and stuff like that and accept Bitcoin Cash. It feels really cool. So I could go off the same thing about Hong Kong, amazing city. In my mind, there is something special in the air there. It's some place that I want to be. I want to create roots there and kind of have a future chapter of my life there, because I think there's something really, really, really special. But if you've never been to Tokyo, or if you ever considered it, bump it to the top of your list. To me, it is Like it kind of shined a light in my eyes, like whether or not Satoshi is one person, whether or not Satoshi was actually from Japan, none of that even matters. What now I'm just talking about the story. It kind of, and I don't know if he was supposed to be from Tokyo. I don't think that was ever actually part of the story. But when I was in Tokyo, it opened my eyes to why Satoshi would be from a place like Tokyo, because it's like the perfect blend of the ancient and the hyper technical modern. So, you have this very, very ancient feel in the air of script, which is super old, and all these ancient cultures and the way people look and dress and act. And then you've got like this hyper technical futuristic society at the same time. And everybody is very cash forward. Like if you go out and eat places, they accept cash. It's, it's kind of weird if you pull out your credit card or something like that. So anyway, Tokyo was amazing. It was probably the most amazing adventure I've ever had in my life. This represents like a wormhole that I fell down. It's a one-way door, and I can just give incredible gratitude to Roger and the entire team for giving me the opportunity, for sure.
Awesome, man. Well, we really appreciate you talking to us. This was a great conversation. I don't think we can say congrats enough to what you've been doing, and then like I'm sure you got plenty more things coming down the pipeline. So we encourage everyone to check out your developer show too. We'll be sending that around as well. So, yeah, man, congrats to everything, and we're looking forward to see what you keep doing.
Yeah, thank you both for having me, and I'd love to join you anytime. So let me know. I'll come back anytime.
Sounds good. Thanks, man. Have a good one.
Thank you guys. Cheers.
Thank you.